lost love. These things happened to me nearly 10 years ago. I lived in a city, but the city was hot in summer. I wanted to see the country. I wanted to walk in the woods and see green trees. I had a little red car and I had a map too. I drove all night out into the country. I was happy in my car. We had a very good summer that year. The country was very pretty in the early morning. The sun was hot and the sky was blue. I heard the birds in the trees, and then my car stopped suddenly. What's wrong? I thought, oh dear, I haven't got any petrol now. I'll have to walk. I'll have to find a town and buy some petrol, but where am I? I looked at the map. I wasn't near a town. I was lost in the country. And then I saw the girl. She walked down the road with flowers in her hand. She wore a long dress, and her hair was long too. It was long and black, and it shone in the sun. She was very pretty. I wanted to speak to her. So I got out of the car. Hello? I said, I'm lost. Where am I? She looked afraid, so I spoke quietly. I haven't got any petrol, I said. Where can I find some? Her blue eyes looked at me and she smiled. She's a very pretty girl. I thought, I do not know. She said, come with me to the village. Perhaps we can help you. I went with her happily and we walked a long way. There isn't a village on the map. I thought, perhaps it's a very small village. There was a village and it was old and pretty. The houses were black and white and very small. There were a lot of animals. The girl stopped at a house and smiled at me. Come in, please, she said. I went in. The house was very clean, but it was strange too. There was a fire and some food above it. I felt hungry. Then, that's strange. I thought they cooked their food over a wood fire. Perhaps they have no money. I met her father and mother and I liked them. They were nice people, but their clothes were strange. Sit down, said the old man. Are you thirsty after your walk? He gave me a drink and I said thank you. But the drink was strange too. It was dark brown and very strong. I didn't understand, but I was happy there. I asked about petrol, but the old man didn't understand petrol. He asked, what is that? This is strange. I thought, then I asked, do you walk everywhere? The old man smiled. Oh no, we was horses. He said, horses. I thought, horses are very slow. Why don't they have cars? But I didn't say that to the old man. I felt happy there. I stayed all day and I ate dinner with them that evening. Then the girl and I went out into the garden. But we do not see many people here. We spoke happily. She was very beautiful, but after a time she began to talk quietly, and her face was sad. Why are you sad? I asked her. I cannot tell you. She said, you are only a visitor here. We have to say goodbye tonight. You have to go now. I didn't understand. I loved her. I knew that. And I wanted to help her. Why did I have to go? But Mary said again in a sad voice, you have to go. It is dangerous here. So I said, I'll go to the next town and find some petrol. Then I'll come back. She didn't speak. I love you, Mary, I said, and I'll come back to you. You won't stop me. She said goodbye to me at the door. Her face was very sad. And I was sad too. I didn't want to go. It was midnight. The night was very dark, but I walked and walked. I was very tired. When I saw the lights of a town, I found some petrol. And then I asked the name of the village, but the man at the garage gave me a strange look. What village? He asked. I told him about the village. I told him about the old houses and the people with strange clothes. Again, he gave me a strange look. He thought. And then he said, there was a village there, but it isn't there now. There are stories about it. Strange stories. What do people say about it? I asked. He didn't want to tell me, but then he said, there was a big fire in the village. Everybody died. There aren't any people or houses there. Now how did it happen? I asked. And why Oliver Cromwell killed them? He said he was angry with the villagers because they helped the king in the war. I couldn't speak. This isn't right. I thought that war happened 350 years ago. Then I remembered the strange clothes, the long hair, the food over the fire, and the old houses. And I remembered too about the horses, but I don't understand. I cried. I saw the people in the village. I spoke to some people there. The man looked quickly at me, and then he spoke. There's an interesting story about the village for one day every 10 years. It lives again, but only for one day. Then it goes away again for another 10 years. On that one day you can find the village, but you have to leave before morning, or you will never leave. Can this be right? I thought perhaps it was Mary said, "You have to go." She loved me, but she said we have to say goodbye. She was afraid for me now. I understand. I thought I went back to the village, but it wasn't there. I looked again and again, but I couldn't find it. I saw only flowers and trees. I heard only the sound of the birds and the wind. I was very sad. I sat down on the ground and cried, "Will never forget that day. I remember Mary and I will always love her now. I only have to wait 2 months. The village will come back again on the right day. I will go back. I will find her again. My love with the long black hair. And this time I will not leave before morning. I will stay with her." The doll Mr. Brown lived near the center of town, but his small house had a garden. Mr. Brown liked his garden very much. It had a lot of flowers and they were pretty in summer red, blue, and yellow. Mr. Brown liked sitting there in the evenings and at weekends, but he had to work too. Mr. Brown worked in an office. It wasn't near his house, so he often went to work on the bush. He came home on the bus too. Mr. Brown was a lonely man. He didn't have many friends and he didn't talk to many people, and so he was sad and often bored. One very hot day, Mr. Brown walked home. He didn't want to go on the bus that day. He wanted to walk in the warm sun in one street. There was a small shop. Mr. Brown looked in the window. There were very old things in the window, and Mr. Brown liked old things. He went into the shop. "Good afternoon," said the man in the shop. "Good afternoon," said Mr. Brown. "Can I look round the shop?" "Please do." Mr. Brown looked at the things in the shop. He saw an old doll with a sad face. It wasn't a pretty face, but Mr. Brown liked it. The doll was a little old man with white hair and black clothes. Mr. Brown thought perhaps the doll is lonely too. He asked, "How much do you want for this old doll?" The man thought, "Oh, that £3. He said Mr. Brown wanted the doll. Why, he didn't know, but he wanted it £3. Was a lot of money for an old doll, but Mr. Brown paid it. He went out with the doll in his hand. He looked at its face. Is it smiling? He wondered. No, he thought, it's only a doll. He said to it, "I'm going to take you home." The doll didn't answer. It was only a doll. So why did Mr. Brown speak to it? Because he was lonely. He put it in his case with his papers. From the office, Mr. Brown was tired now, so he got on the bus. The man came for Mr. Brown's money, and Mr. Brown bought a ticket. Suddenly somebody on the bus spoke. "Go away," said the person. "You stupid man, go away, everybody on the bus." Looked at Mr. Brown. Did he say that they wondered the ticket man was angry with Mr. Brown? Why did he say that he wondered he gave Mr. Brown a ticket and went away? He didn't like Mr. Brown. When Mr. Brown got home, he was very tired. Who spoke on the bus, he wondered he didn't know. He took the doll out of his case and looked at it. It was only a doll. It wasn't very pretty, it was quite ugly, but it had a smile on its face. That's strange, thought Mr. Brown. He put the doll on the table and had his dinner. Brown wasn't very hungry, so he only ate some bread and butter. Then he went to bed and slept. He forgot the doll. It was on the table. Morning came and the sun shone into the room. Mr. Brown opened it. His eyes, there was something on his bed. What is it? He wondered. He looked and he saw the doll. But I left it on the table. It can't walk. It's only a doll. Mr. Brown didn't understand it. It was very strange. Mr. Brown went to the front door. Are there any letters for me? He wondered, yes. There were 3 with his name and address. But what was this? The letters were open. Who opened it? The Brown didn't know. Mr. Brown ate his breakfast. Then he went to the bus stop and waited. His bus came and stopped for him. Mr. Brown got on with his case and sat down. There were a lot of people on the bus, and one old woman couldn't sit down. Her face was tired, and Mr. Brown was a kind man. He stood up for her, and she sat down. Then suddenly somebody spoke. You stupid old thing. The woman turned and looked at Mr. Brown. She was very angry. Mr. Brown's face went red. Then he remembered the doll he got off the bus. He couldn't understand it. That doll's at home. He thought, or is it? Mr. Brown opened his case and looked inside. The doll was there with a big smile on its oogly face. He put the doll down on the street and left it there. Then he went to work. That's the end of that doll. He thought good Mr. Brown worked well all day after work. He walked to the bus stop, but what was that? The doll was at the bus stop. Mr. Brown saw the white hair and the black clothes, and he saw the smile too. What's happening? He wondered, it's waiting for me. It isn't only a doll, but what is it? He turned and ran away from the bus stop. Then he walked home. He had to walk 3 kilometers to his house. He was very tired. Mr. Brown sat down in a chair and went to sleep. He slept for an hour. Suddenly, there was a big noise.